The Gull Civil Wars are over. Peace and prosperity run in the Seagull Confederation for like the third time. Uh, Second? I'm not sure. I can't keep track anymore. Order restored, the Gulls focused on their technology, creating an assortment of life-benefiting devices and medicines. In their time of developing revolutionary tech, the world around them was on fire. World War II was wrapping up with the dropping of the atom bombs, and the Cold War was soon to rise. Hint, hint. The United Nations was formed, and although the Gulls took part in it, the world's nations were mostly anti-Gull, as they believed that humans were superior, chosen by God, nature, or any other means of their powerful being. Among the anti-Gull nations, one group saw the Gulls as a valuable ally, none other than the USSR. Yep, the original Hammer and Sickle country decided to ally themselves with the Seagull Confederation, mainly because the Gulls were in their technological revolution and they wanted part in their growth. So, was this alliance made for self-benefit? Absolutely. But they did offer the Confederation favors within the UN, and since basically everyone else was against them, having a political ally was definitely needed. Of course, with this large boost in Russian technology, the United States took notice and significantly upped their tech spending, beginning the Cold War started out with your typical arms race and the development of nuclear warheads, starting with the USSR and Seagull Confederation's first atom bomb to the hydrogen bomb, and then to the nuclear bomb. Now, the development of these weapons of mass destruction came mostly from the USSR, as the Gulls were focused on their space projects. The Gulls were birds, so they knew a lot more about aerodynamics, simply from being birds. At this point, the United States had began their NASA project, but the Seagulls were just a few steps ahead of them. To add to the war aspect of this, a few minor wars broke out between the Gulls and the UN, namely the Rig War off the North Sea, where the Gulls tried to sabotage the US's oil supply. It was only partially successful, as the US Navy was able to hold off the Seagulls from their production core, so that went well. The year is 1955, and the Seagull Confederation was now ready to launch the first satellite, the Observer 12, and only a year later, the first Gull into space. The moon landing was decided to be a cooperative effort between the USSR, USA, and Seagull Confederation, as the UN wanted it to be a global effort despite the Gulls doing most of the work. This joint landing, however, would simply be a diversion for US operations. See, they wanted to convince the UN that the Gulls were a major threat to human society, so to do that they would frame them for a terrible crisis. The US took a few large civilian transports filled with people, and then moved a bit too close to Gull territory, closer than the normal route. A nearby US sub stood ready, and at the right moment, sunk all of the ships, swimming away to make it look like the Gulls committed this heinous crime. They took this information to the UN, and no matter how hard the Gulls plead, they were in vote against them. The UN would then go to make their most radical decision yet: terminate the Seagull race.